Thanks very much, guys. Always great to have the band here, right? Special occasions, we get a small group comes in and helps bring us in and bring us out. End of the year, 2022. We're just hours away from seeing 2023. And as usual, I like to do a little year-end review. Take a look at the shows we've looked at for the last 12 months. Which ones were more popular than others. Get our top 10 list in there, right? And just talk a little bit about the show for anybody that's new to watching. Now, just to explain, the show was never about playing music. The show was designed to introduce music to the viewers. Sometimes it was just a reminder of a group you used to listen to but had forgotten about. Sometimes it's introducing you to a brand new group you've never heard of before. And sometimes it's just a chance to look at music history. What led us to where we are today. And now with the streaming networks, it's all at your fingertips. Basically, the show is trying to introduce you to music to check out. And hopefully some of you have done that and listened to some of these albums. And really, the full catalog is there for a lot of the artists. So, I mean, there's so much to pick from. It started out as a pandemic project when we were all cooped up here in our homes back in the spring of 2020. And we needed things to entertain us, to keep us interested in what was going on. And it's kind of moved on since then. Now, just from the standpoint of YouTube, I'd like to thank all the viewers that have stayed with us. 400 episodes today. It's great having the subscribers. It's also great having the likes and some feedback. I've had some great feedback over the year. Sometimes from the actual artists themselves that appreciated getting the exposure. I had a couple of letters from family of artists that had passed away that were appreciative of us still promoting their dad's music and making sure that it got out to the people to check out. So there's some great stuff out there. I really appreciate the feedback. If you get a chance, like the videos, subscribe. It only helps us out here to know, really what you're interested in. Anyways, let's get on with today's show. Top 10 list. We looked at the videos that we did over 2020. And here's how it shaped up. Number 10 video. Music from Leon Russell. This was Leon live. Leon, by this point, had worked with Joe Cocker quite a bit. I think the regular Cocker album was the first time I had heard him. Mad Dog's an Englishman, the album, the movie. Wrote the music, did the arrangements, played piano, played guitar. Leon's had a whole career of his own as well. I mean, a singer, songwriter, performer, just a massive talent, massive legend. Certainly well received by the audience, and I hope people went back and checked out his material. If you get a chance, check out Leon Russell. Then we moved into number 9. A fellow who at one time lived in Hamilton, Ontario, just outside the GTA, Greater Toronto area. And if you've watched the show for any length of time, you know how I feel about Toronto. David Byrne. David Byrne and Talking Heads. Their album. And again, great album. Stop Making Sense. Great concert album. I don't think there's anything I didn't like about Talking Heads. I remember first seeing them on Saturday Night Live. And their performance there is what led me to go out and start buying their music. But certainly Stop Making Sense was just a classic album. And David Byrne had the Broadway production there last year. I believe that's still up online if you get a chance to see it. Really excellent stuff. Okay, number 8 this time. We flash back to the 60s with the music from Jimi Hendrix. And this was an album that was given to me. Certainly I was aware of Hendrix's music, but I really never had purchased any of it before this. A great album to introduce you. Excellent playing, trio band, and we'll talk about them in another minute when we get back to some other albums I have, but certainly changed the whole face of music and guitar playing and guitar solos. It's a legendary band, legendary performer. If you get a chance, check him out. Let's go up, go number 7 here, movie music. Well, what do you suppose was the most popular movie soundtrack from the 1970s? It was the Bee Gees and Saturday Night Fever. Yeah, that was a hot commodity back in the 70s. Some great tunes on there, some great hits. Robin Gibb and his brothers, they put out an excellent album. It was one that really wasn't just all about the music. I mean, the movie was great too, but the music stood alone on its own. And it garnered a spot in number 7 on our top 10 list. Okay, number 6 this time, Michael Naismith. Now, you may remember the name. Mike was one of the Monkees back in the 60s. When the Monkees disbanded, Mike went off on his own and still continued to make music and write music. Certainly there's so much to cover in the Monkees. We haven't even looked at their music yet. Kind of just touched on what Mike was doing after, and he had a great career. I think the first time I actually heard of something of his outside of being with the Monkees was the song he wrote for Stone Ponies. I don't know if he wrote it for them, but they recorded it, different drums, and Linda Ronstadt's big hit, which really brought her to the forefront. I've heard Mike do a version of it, very different, but again, that's a good tune. And Mike had a certain style about what he played. And this was a great album to go back and kind of check out what he was doing post-Monkee era. And him being one of, when the original bands put together, actual musicians that could play and was writing music as well. Okay, let's move on. Number 5, one of my favorites, Frank Zappa and the Yellow Shark. Now, I covered this one, I think it was December. Let me just check. No, it actually was back in September we had talked about it. It's episode 386. And it was the last album that was recorded during his lifetime. He had passed away shortly after this. And it's an orchestral album played by the Ensemble Modern. And it kind of gets away from that image Frank had. I mean, most people, when you think of Zappa, they think of the outrageous stage antics, the outrageous lyrics, the songs that should be banned. But I mean, the guy had a lot of talent as a composer. And these songs put together and performed by this group, some of them are hard to get your head around. They are complex, but it just showed the talent he had as a composer. And it was just a great album. I think we talked about it when we were getting into the holiday season, and I wanted to give people some ideas on gift-giving ideas because it came with a nice package with it. Now, that's one of the things with a lot of these. I'm not talking about it today, but if you want to go back to the actual episodes, the episodes will tell you all about the packaging, what came with it, if there's any freebies, the kind of things you can look for that way, who played on the albums. It gives you a lot of details because for myself, I always liked reading that when I was listening to music. I like to look at the book and see who was performing, who was in the band, who was producing, where did they record it, all those kind of neat things. And a lot of what we have on here provides that, which we don't get with streaming, but hey, we get the whole catalog with streaming, so it's worthwhile. Okay, let's go up to episode 315. Garnered a spot at number 4, and it was the music by singer-songwriter Kim Carnes. The album, big hit, Betty Davis Eyes. Album Mistaken Identity. Kim had a couple of big hits there back, I'm going to say, this was around the 80s. She'd been around for a long time, and I think she's still out performing, but those really stuck out. Betty Davis Eyes was the big hit for her, and it was on this album. And again, you can find out more details about that if you want to go back and check out the episode. That was 315. All right, now we're going to go up to episode 317, garnered number 3 position, top 3. And it's an album by some performers that I really enjoyed later in their career. So I went back to discover what they'd done earlier. Performers being Ron Wood and Rod Stewart. And of course, the band is Faces. The album Faces, Good Boys When They're Asleep. A lot of great hits on there. And it was really well received. A lot of people were interested in it. Maybe it was because of the combination of Ron Wood and Rod Stewart together. Maybe it was just the memory of the Faces themselves, but it's well worth taking a look at. And again, it was a great band, some great performers. Obviously, Rod went on to a great solo career. Ron Wood playing with Rolling Stones. Lots of chance to hear them later on in their careers. Number 2 album, Kiss. I was shocked by this one. I pulled this one out and thought, well, I wonder how many people will, remember this or pull it out. It was the album Kiss Alive, and it was August of 22 we put it up, and I couldn't get over how many people got behind this album and got behind the show watching the take on it, and how many people sent comments about Kiss as well. I mean, a great band, covered music from their first 3 albums. It was one of the things I always like to do is get a greatest hits or a live album, and I mean greatest hits and live are sometimes pretty close together like that, right? They're the same thing. But this album really got people's attention. And maybe it's just the audience I have. Maybe you haven't checked it out. Go back and take a look at one of the bands that really changed the face of rock and roll. And the last one, #1 album on 2022, the collaboration between Diana Krall and Elvis Costello, Girl in the Other Room. Again, I couldn't get over the response to this one. And it was an interesting album because they were doing original material that Krall and Costello had written. I know she'd done a lot of big band music and classic ballads. Here's a chance where she's actually writing and performing her own music. And it was an interesting slant on that. Some excellent players on the album. Again, it was the top viewed show in 2022. So, Girl in the Other Room, Diana Krall, and collaborating with her husband, Elvis Costello. Now, just before we wrap up, I'm going to go back and do 5 special mentions. These are other albums that have been out since the course of the show began that are still doing well and I think have some relevance. Number 5 on that list, we've got, let me see, Bob James. Oh, no, it was Chuck Mangione. Sorry, Chuck Mangione. Great musician back in the 70s. I mean, I went to a lot of concerts. I bought a lot of albums. We looked at 2 sets of Chuck Mangione music. We looked at the Mercury years when he was first getting started. There's some excellent music there. Some large concerts with orchestra and a special album live where it was just the quartet. And I mean, it's some of the best work I think he's done. We also looked at his A&M years, which I'm going to call the commercial years, where he really gained popularity and became a household name. And either show, excellent to take a look at. Music. Let me see, we had episode 3 it was. That was the one where we're looking at Mercury years. So if you haven't seen that or you don't know about Chuck Mangione's early recording years, take a look at it. There's some excellent music there if you get a chance to find it. Okay, moving up from that, number 4, Bob James. Bob James 1. One of the CTI albums, Creed Taylor produced, did it on his label, and a couple of them seemed to do really well. Bob James playing piano, did arrangements. He had some of the excellent New York session men on the band with him. Great album. Check out the episode. We're looking at episode 42 for a little more details about that album. Next, we have Deodato. A big hit. Also Sprach Zarathustra. Theme from 2001, Space Odyssey. And again on CTI Records with Creed Taylor producing. Same situation, a lot of great New York session men on there. If you take a look at the album, it's on episode 39. You'll find a lot of details about who's playing, what they were doing, but well worth checking out. And it was really a breakout album for jazz for the masses. That a lot of people got listening to jazz because of what Deodato was doing. Okay, next one up, the second most popular album, Woodstock. Original soundtrack. And I mean, what do you say about this album? I mean, we've got John Sebastian, we've got Arlo Guthrie, Richie Havens, Joan Baez, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, The Who, Joe Cocker, Santana, Alvin Lee, and 10 Years After, Sly and the Family Stone, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, we've got people that changed the face of music. Music was never the same after we had that Woodstock era as what it was before. And there were some guitarists in that era as well. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, the main one on here, but he wasn't the only one. I mean, people like Clapton, Jimmy Page, took music to a whole different level. In the 60s and the 50s, you'll hear songs, and there'll be guitar solos, maybe 4 or 5 bars, well, be 4 or 8 bars long. Just little ditties they put in the song in between verses. These guys took it and made a whole different song, a whole different style of improvising, maybe closer to what jazz was doing, right? Where the improvisers kind of took off the main theme and did something, but Hendrix, Page, Clapton, those guys actually spoke what they felt through the horn or through the guitar. They were taking music to a whole nother level, extended solos, and some very unique ideas and a lot of experimentation. And same thing with the Woodstock album. There was so much going on in there. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young with a whole different style from what the Who were doing, from what Santana was doing, from what Sha Na Na was on there doing, with 50s revival music. Richie Havens. It was surprising. I had a friend went to Woodstock. I asked him, wondering if he'd remember, but people joke about that. But I said, who was your favorite artist there? Because there was just so many. Richie Havens, he said. I thought, wow. I mean, when I listened to him on there, the first time I heard him was on this album. Didn't even know him. And the fact that he made that much of an impression just shows you the kind of atmosphere that there was, the way the music was reaching people. And again, great album. I have it down as the album of historical significance, and it really, really was. It was our #2 album since we started. And another one deserving recognition was John Zorn Spillane. This thing just keeps rolling on, episode 109. I mean, that was quite a while ago, 109. I'm looking at January 2021, put that out, so a year ago, and yet I'm still getting views on it. People are still searching it out. And when I put it up, I thought, who's going to know John Zorn? Or even Spillane, maybe at this stage. I mean, Spillane was big in the 50s, 60s, maybe even in the 70s. But I tell you, it's a unique album. Go back and watch the episode. It's episode 109 to find out the details of how they put this album together, because it'll just blow your mind. It's so unusual and so unique what he was doing with his musicians. Oh, that's it. It's been a busy year. We've had all kinds of great things going on. We've had some great music coming up. I've had a few donations of albums. That's always been great to get to. And I just hope if you get a chance, go back and check out some of the older episodes. I have put them in playlists because we do cover a wide variety of music. I mean, nothing's out of bounds. So if you like jazz, you like rock, you like country, go back and check the playlist. And check out some of the artists that are there. There's so much music out there, so much music to explore. I hope we kind of pique your interest on some of these and you actually take a few minutes to go and check them out. Okay, that's it. Happy New Year, everybody. We're wrapping up. It'll be 2023 shortly. We'll see you all in the new year. Till then, everybody, take care. Stay safe.
Happy New Year!
Thanks for stopping by. Happy New Year.